Hello, everybody. Welcome to WitchLab Wednesday Live. I'm your host, Tiffany Boggins. Today is October 20th, 19 not even in the right century. 2021 is where we are. Tonight, my guest is going to be Satanist and author Shiva Honey. She wrote this amazing book, The Devil's Tome. We're gonna bring her out here in just a little bit. We're gonna talk about some other stuff first, though. Let's see who's here. By the way, where's my comments? Nobody yet. Oh, there's Rachel. Hi, Rachel. Number one comment. What's up, Rachel? High five on that. All right. Let's see. Peg. Hey, Peg. How's it going? Christina, Michelle. All right. The gang's all getting here. Let's talk about, I wanted to thank everybody who came to the Kobe Michaels in-person class on the 8th. That was awesome. It was so nice to sit down with people in person and do this. Of course, we're all masked, and not getting in each other's faces, but it's really nice to have people in there. And I want to thank everybody who came and thank Kobe Michael for being there. It was nice to be part of his book tour launch thing. Let's talk about the Dionysus party that just happened. I know every other show is talking about promoting it, and right now I just want to be like, that shit was awesome. It was amazing. We burned a large snake in the fire pit, and there was a snake sculpture, not an actual snake, but big 8-foot wooden beautiful thing that James Kindler made for us. We actually called up Dionysus. Hi, Kate. Hi, Alonzo. Lindy. Hey, Lindy. Yeah, Lindy was there. Lindy, actually, I believe that's you that won second place in the costume contest. And Joe. So we burned a huge snake and we called up Dionysus, and we made $2,000 for Kaleidoscope, which is amazing. Kaleidoscope is the youth center here in Columbus that helps LGBTQIA plus kids to find safe space and to be able to connect with other kids and to, feel awesome about their life, as they should. Costumes were incredible. Like I said, I think Lindy won second place. She was Hecate, if I'm right. Yes, yeah, that was her. So our first prize winners, we had a whole group of Maenads. That was awesome. We had they were third place, and then we had Lindy, who was Hecate. She had triple faces, and she was carrying a torch. It was gorgeous. And our first place was a Beetlejuice, and this amazing Beetlejuice costume that this person handmade. And they went for the dead ski, so they got my vote. Hi, Susie. How's it going? So the costume contest was fantastic. Actually, people who won the costume contest, I need to tell you, you didn't get all your prizes, because when James handed them out, he forgot about the bags from Magical Materials. So you guys have these fantastic candles waiting for you at the shop. And if you're not watching, I'm going to reach out to people individually too. So the entertainers were great. Lance Cashmere, who did amazing lounge singing all night and was our MC. And he is the alter ego of Jason Kincaid, who did all of the flyers and the beautiful labels for the new products and really submerged us into Dionysian sexiness. Devin Ayers, who was our actual Dionysus, who came through like 3 hours before the performance. We had no Dionysus because our Dionysus had actually kind of ghosted us a few days before. And so Devin Ayers, who is amazing, one of the most amazing performers we have here in Columbus. It was actually him and his wife, Pandora Fox, who did the Coven performance. I'm losing words. Performance at the Dark Market years ago. I don't know which of you remember that, but Devin Ayers was the Papa Legba then and was our Dionysus this Saturday. And Emmy Lazarus, and recently deceased, and of course DJ Big Dad. You guys made it an amazing party. All the wonderful people who came, all the people who volunteered, the Vanderbilt Room for hosting, Circle of the Dark Mother guys, especially Mark Williams, who helped me write the Dionysus ritual. Way to come through with the Greek, my friend. And it's interesting. So this is the first time that I've gotten on stage without being completely fucking freaked out. Like every other time I've ever had to do it, you know, putting a microphone in my hand and having to actually get up on a stage and actually say things, especially if it's a memorization thing, it's like it's pukey feelings the whole time. I wasn't even worried about it. It didn't even bother me. It was like, oh, it's my time to go up. I didn't think about it before. And I think this show has actually really helped me a lot with my stage fright stuff. I'm going to turn this off. Because it's, I don't know, I talk to you guys all the time. And I guess I'm not scared anymore. I even had to go up like impromptu stuff. Like, Tiffany, go announce these things. I'm like, oh, all right, let's give me that mic. So the next entertainment thing, if you missed this, the next entertainment thing we have going on is Baba Yaga art show is happening in January. And I plan on putting together a little something for that because she is very near and dear to me. And I kind of want to scare you all with how scary she is. So just general upcoming WitchLab stuff, monthly meetings. Circle the Dark Mother meeting is always on the first Sunday of every month. It's a discussion group about Gnostic Kabbalah led by Mark Williams, who helped me write the article, the ritual. Not even thinking right words anymore. All right. Let's see what we got from people. Hi, Kelly and Richard. And yes, we will definitely have a party next year. So WitchLab has had a party every single Halloween since 2016. I'd say party. It's we've had an event. 2016 there was a seance. 2017 there was a seance. 2018 was the dark market. 2019 was the satanic cocktail party. 2020 we did not do anything, obviously, because well. But then this year, 2021, Dionysus and the Dead. So we will have something next year. Absolutely. I don't know what it's going to be. I never know until we sit down and start talking about it. And yes, Lance Cashmere is one sexy dude. He really is. It's the pinky ring. Oh, Kate says my hair looks fabulous. Okay. So I meant to talk about this for a second. So, because I'm having Shiva Honey on tonight, and Shiva Honey is, a very sexy Satanist. I wanted to do homage to like 70s Satany movies with my hair, right? So I can be both like the innocent girl, right? Like who like just wanders in, or right, I can be like the scary older woman who like convinces her to come have tea or whatever. But yeah, I'd do that. Thanks, Kate. Thanks for noticing. Let's say party was awesome. Thank you, Kelly. The party was fucking amazing. And hey, Doug, how's it going? Okay, so let's finish up announcements because I know Shiva's waiting for us. So Circle the Dark Mother meeting happens first Sunday of every month. You can find that on the event page on the Facebook WitchLab Facebook page, event page. And the WitchLab book club, just for everybody, normally it is the last Sunday of every month, but because this month, the last Sunday is Halloween, nobody wants to do book club on Halloween. So they're switching it to the Sunday before. It's going to be the 24th. And this book this month is Psychic Witch by Matt Oren. November 3rd, we have Victoria Constantino is going to be on the show with her new book, Tarot by the Moon, just happens to be next to me. Oh, this is the uncorrected proof copy, but it still works. November 6th, the Columbus Witches Ball will be happening at the Convention Center here in Columbus. WitchLab will be in the house for that. It is being put on by the Magical Druid. They're an amazing magic shop in town. Please visit them and be their customers. Saturday, November 13th, Intuitive Witchcraft Workshop is happening at WitchLab in person with Estrella Taylor. December 4th, Evo Dominguez. In January and February, we've got Maggie Caldwell. And also February on the show, we're going to have Amy Blackthorne will be back with her book on protection, her new book. And Judith Ellis will be back in March. So there's a lot of things coming, and there's actually more things in there that I don't have confirmation on yet. But I'll get you more when I get it. But I think that's enough about our stuff. I say we get our guest out here, yeah? So she is a Satanist, a writer, a fucking world traveler, people. Like, you have no idea. Wait till you hear about this shit. She is the author of The Devil's Tome, a book of modern satanic rituals, and the designer of the Devil's Deck, It's so shiny. That's hard to get in that thing. Please allow me to introduce Shiva Honey.
Hi, how's it going?
It's really well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being on the show. This is awesome. Oh my gosh, for once somebody is like way more dark than I am. Usually I'm the
Oh
darkest.
yeah, I was trying to get the mood. Hopefully it's okay.
It's
Get the
really
mood
great. No,
right.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Usually I don't even look skin toned because I look so but
I
you
just went with purple today. I
this
thought,
I love it.
I'm feeling it. It's gonna be Prince thing. I don't know.
Oh, well, Rachel will be very excited about that. The first person who signed on, she is a Prince extraordinaire fan.
Oh, awesome.
Usually when I see her, she's got the Paisley Place background. So
That's fantastic.
mood lighting is everything. Jason's correct about that.
Yeah, it's very important in Satanism, I think. Getting the especially with COVID, like so many online meetings, you got to get the right mood lighting. You got to get the right setup. The aesthetic has to be right, you know.
Yeah, you definitely. I've. So I have this for the show, but then like when I'm doing a Zoom meeting or something, sometimes I'm sitting on my bed and it's all just terrible. It's just like like the up under my face kind of thing.
Yeah, I refuse to have the camera on unless I'm like in a situation like this. So I'm like, I can happily just take a phone call at this point. I don't
Be a phone interview right now.
know.
So I want to thank you for sending me the book so quickly.
Oh yeah.
So I'd actually ordered books from Shiva months ago, and we got them, and then we sold them all before I could get one to read it. So she was gracious enough to send me one, and I absolutely love it when people sign their books for me. This makes me so happy. So thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to give you a message, a special message. I really appreciate you opening your shop up to me and carrying my stuff. So it means a lot, and I love what you're doing. So
Thanks. Thank you. And your stuff fits perfectly in our shop. We are definitely the dark shop in Columbus. Like we are if you're gonna look for Satan-y stuff, most likely you're gonna come to WitchLab.
that's awesome. I really, really want to come down. I've been, of course, with the pandemic, it's been wild, but hopefully I'll be able to make it out in person. The coming months, I've been pretty much a hermit since the pandemic started, but 2022, that's the year I think I'm going to get back out there. So
that's what I keep hoping too. I keep hoping that like we'll be able to start traveling and getting people in, and because I want to go visit other people. I want to go visit other shops and things, and I want to go on location and interview people, like actually, in their own shops or in their own homes. That would be really fun.
Yeah, definitely. I'm super into that too. I started a Patreon last year and I expected to be able to do some stuff like that, but it just hasn't come into fruition because of the limitations of COVID at the moment. But I love traveling and, meeting people at their places, seeing what's going on. It's like such a great pleasure to do all that stuff.
Speaking of which, in your book, you talk about, I had no idea what a traveler you are, like all the things that you've done and places you've gone. I think that helps people so much to broaden their horizons and broaden their perspective and shift their paradigm so that they can see the world, from a higher perspective, so that you can understand more about the human race, right?
Yeah, travel's been so important for that for me, definitely. I started traveling after, when I turned 18, I got a scholarship to be able to go pretty much wherever, and I ended up going to Italy for a bit, and then in my 20s, I started traveling more broadly, but it made such a difference to be able to see the similarities between all of us and to also like investigate different religious traditions, ritual traditions, that sort of thing. I was raised in a very like Christian fundamentalist sort of household, so it was so wonderful to be able to meet different people with different perspectives. And ultimately, that's, I think, one of the things that really broadened my mind and led me to where I am today. So it's very, very important.
So let's talk about your involvement with the Satanic Temple.
Yes.
What exactly is your role there?
Yeah, I've had many roles over the years. I started out in TST as one of the founding members of our first chapter, which is the Detroit chapter back in 2014. And I was a part of organizing the initial big events that we had. Like we did the Snaketivity, a statue at the Capitol in Lansing. We unveiled Baphomet. We did a whole bunch of street protests, that sort of thing. And then after a while, the Detroit chapter kind of slowed down a little bit. So I got involved at the national level with the National Council, which was the kind of one of the governing bodies of TST. and I did that for a couple of years, and then I got invited in by the organization to start doing rituals at their headquarters. So that became more of a focus for me. And now I'm just kind of floating around writing stuff at this point. I'm still a member of TST, but I'm not as formally involved. I'm not really. We have a Detroit chapter that's redeveloping, and I've renounced the leadership positions I had just because I've been working on so much other stuff. But yeah, I'm still connected with them, and they've been really supportive of the work. And they definitely, my journey with the Satanic Temple was definitely what brought me to writing this book, The Devil's Tome, and encouraged me to start sharing my ritual practice with the world, basically.
I'm glad you did, because your the rituals that you write in here and that you share with people, they are okay. They're accessible, one, but they're incredibly touching. Like they're very personal. I mean, I know that you're writing them for other people, but you actually make them personal for that person.
Mm-hmm.
Playlists. There was one, I wrote it down because this one actually brought tears to my eyes as soon as I read it. The Unbound from Lost Love ritual.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The one line, because you have to say things and then you have to do certain things to mimic those things. And the one line, I remember the pain, choked me up immediately. I was just like, oh, like I wasn't ready to be emotionally affected just by reading the ritual. But they're so, like I said, they're accessible. Like anybody can do them. You don't even need to be a Satanist to do them or anything. They're very simple because you take the supernatural parts out of it. This is just for the actual act of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my practice is very based on secular ritual. I don't really have any supernatural connections to what I'm doing, and the type of Satanism that TST embraces is a non-theistic Satanism. So in the book, I talk about, regardless of what you believe, if you believe in a higher power, if you don't, if you believe in many, science has proven in recent years that ritual is such a powerful tool for catharsis, for dealing with grief, helping improve performance. There's something real that happens when we perform rituals that I think, I put it in my terms, like it really helps reprogram your brain. So when I was writing these rituals, I essentially shared what I use myself. So these are rituals that have been very personal to me and helping me move forward. And, I think the big goal for me was, just to share what worked for me, but then to also just, the idea of accessibility was really huge for me, because there's so many, not to I think there's so many great practices around, but for me, reading some more of like some of the Western esotericism that was like very, very veiled and like complicated when I was first getting into the occult world. And without having a mentor, it was really hard for me to like embrace that sort of magic that was there, because it was so hard to kind of rattle through all of the minutia and like the big details and the rules, and making something that was accessible, that anybody could do, and realizing and encouraging people to find the power within themselves. That was the thing that I really wanted to do with this book. So.
And I think that is a big part of Satanism that those who are on the outside of it, who don't understand it, don't get, is that the power is in you. Like you are the thing that is bringing it forth. It's not our Lord Lucifer or anything like that. It's that he is a symbol, right?
Yeah.
And I know that you and I have talked about this to death before. So I don't know. Do you remember when we met in 2015?
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, it was at the convention, the Atheists of, I can't remember the organization's name exactly.
Yeah, it was the
Secular
Student Alliance, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, so it was here in Columbus. It was at the Student Union building, and I was there to interview Doug Messner, right?
Yeah.
Who did some of the illustrations, right?
Yes.
Those things. So and not to talk too much about him, but founder and spokesperson of the TST at the time, and he agreed to give me an interview, and so the three of us went upstairs to a room that we didn't break into because it wasn't locked, but we definitely weren't supposed to be there.
Yeah, it all worked out.
It did. And I really enjoyed that time with you and with Doug. That was really amazing. But you and I have talked a lot about how it's not about Satan. It's about the representation. It's about the rebellion. It's about how you can have your own power. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to come from something supernatural, especially something demonic, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny because I think people, I live in Michigan, like Ohio is pretty conservative across the board, I think. So it's something, you know, even though I'm very public in my presence online and that sort of thing, it's still not something I talk to with people that I meet unless I know them well. Or when they ask me what I do for a living, I'll just say I'm an accountant or something like that. But, you know, um, it's it's something, but I think when people learn what we're actually about, and I think like the movie Hail Satan really helped with that, and some of the other, like the CNN documentary that happened really helped demystify some of what we do. But yeah, it's all about you know, I embrace the image of Satan because of what I grew up with. Also, I was always very progressive politically, and I always saw myself siding with the adversary, somebody who's trying to move things forward. There's so many attributes in that sort of version of that idea of the devil that resonated with me, and that's kind of like what TST is about. It's using this character as a symbol of rebellion and finding that sort of rebellion and that power within yourself. And that's been my big thing. In the book, even I write at the intro, I say, you are the magic. And I put that in the deck too, because it's the truth. It's like, once we are able to kind of disconnect from, in my experience, once I was able to disconnect from some of the external approval I needed, or the external, you know, the games that were happening around me, and just kind of turned inward, that really helped me be able to focus on what I needed and, you know, build a life that was more reflective of my desires, which is, to me, like what Satanism is all about.
And I think it should be the point of every religion, right? It should be the point of anything that is supposed to improve your life, improve how you feel about the world, improve, you know, the problems that you have with your own development, and kind of push through them. And I think that so many people don't understand. They're freaked out by Satanism, and they don't understand that that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least, okay, there's lots of different kinds of Satanism, right? So, but the particular kind we're talking about with Satanic Temple based, and with the tenets, is very much, you are your own source of power. You know, you can go forward, and with this, almost like this structured help, and I'm only saying structured because you actually have rituals here that are a structure you can use to move yourself through some of these hard times in life. But you're never asking them to take something without, you're not asking them to swallow any truths or supernatural or anything woo-woo. One things you say in the book is, ground yourself in your truth as you explore the text in this book. Because Satanism doesn't ask you to accept blindly without question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when it comes to ritual practice or life in general, I mean, we're most successful when we are listening to our inner voice, and you know, not to what some guru. I'm very like anti-guru, like anti-authority, as you can imagine. But I really think, at least in my lived experience, again, I think that, you know, what I was hoping with this book is that people can get inspired. If things resonate and they want to do what I wrote, that's great. But a lot of it is also just like finding your own path. And like, I wanted in the temple, so the temple only really was developed in 2013 or 2012, 2013-ish. So we're a very young religion. And when I first got involved with the temple, there wasn't much of an understanding of how ritual could play a part in our specific genre of Satanism. And we were trying to figure that out. And I actually, when I spoke up about doing ritual, a lot of people, not in leadership, but people that ultimately I think left the organization, were upset about it. And I wanted to give people permission to explore this thing that really helped me, and to also explore themselves through it. And to take, you know, with this book, take what you want, take what resonates, like imbue your own ancestry, your own traditions, your own culture, your own, you know, your own needs. This is a work of inspiration. And the thing I like so much about TST is that there isn't like, we've started a ministry program now, but there isn't such a rigid hierarchy as there are in other organizations. And so you really have that freedom to just kind of, you know, choose your own adventure, basically. And so I really I felt like I had enough authority at that point that like someone needed to say it. And so I wanted to, and I was like, I hope the book resonates with people. And it turns out that it did. So yeah.
It definitely does. I and you touched on this before earlier in our conversation, but I love that you go into the psychological findings and the studies on what rituals actually done for people,
Mm-hmm.
and not religion, ritual.
Mm-hmm.
Having that that time that either like marks something, or even something that you do on a regular basis, just to build up your own fortitude, right? Or your own love of yourself. But I love that you go into why ritual, and you actually differentiate ritual from routine, which I think is a very important thing,
Yeah, I
because
think people
routine does
still.
not do the same things to our brain.
Yeah, no, routine is people even recently I was talking to someone and they mentioned stuff that's like routine and sometimes I chime in about it and then other times I'm like, why bother? But it's I think people still get that kind of confused. It's you have to be. I mean, the definition of ritual I use is in one of the papers that I cite, and it's basically like I'm trying to think of an abridged version of it. It's basically the idea of this ritual in their terms is a series of actions that are done for a specific purpose, with intention. And so what they're talking about in like a lot of these studies is, writing after the death of somebody or, doing affirmations before a big performance and all these other sort of experiments to see how they affect people. And yeah, it's just, to me, it's such a great mechanism to check in with yourself, to understand what your needs are, to help affirm what your needs are, and to like take, for me, a lot of times ritual, it just points me in the direction and makes me do the work to actually pursue what I want, as opposed to just having it out in the nebulous somewhere. You know what I mean? Sometimes my ritual is like writing my to-do list or like checking daily on my like the unglamorous satanic ritual of checking daily on like the things I have to do and reevaluating what my goals are, it becomes mundane at some points, but it's still what anchors me to my life and my desires, and something I find very important.
You also talk about when you when you do ritual, you wrote that sometimes you do it almost as a reaction to being anxious or
Mm-hmm.
under stress, which I think is a great way that, there are these tools that we can do when we are under stress, and it's the hardest time to remember what they are. But
Yeah.
if you can remember that what you want to do is slow down
Mm-hmm.
and take a moment, be in the moment, direct your mind towards this intentional task, as opposed to just, kind of living at that like vibration of being anxious. It
Yeah.
makes you kind of in this moment settle.
Yeah, absolutely. I have PTSD, so it's something I struggle with a lot, and that's where rituals had really come through for me, and just being able to. I might feel like I'm just like blowing in the wind, or there's like fire all around me emotionally, but like when I can just take some time to recenter myself and focus, it makes a world of difference. And that's one of the mechanisms that those academic papers talk about with ritual, is that ritual gives us a sense of control. It gives us a mechanism for control. And that means the world to the human brain and to us as emotional people, to have that sense of like, not all is lost and I can do something to help myself at this moment. That's a big deal.
That is a huge deal, to have that tool in your, in your pocket, to be able to be like, no, I can actually like bring myself down. I know how to do this. And I
Yeah.
think that if people could access that more, I think that I think there'd be more Satanists.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think, for me, it's opened up so much for me in terms of being able to like, instead of being reactive, that's actually something I've been working on, especially with COVID, because everything's fallen apart. But this idea that we can be, and it's kind of a Buddhist, I guess, take on things, but like, being present and understanding that we don't have to react to the external circumstances or give in to fear or, give in to whatever sort of agitation there is outside of us, but we can find some sort of calmness and direction from inside, and tune out the rest.
Yeah. And like you said, you have to feel like you have some control over it, that you're not just to the whims of whatever, like you said, this external fire that's, blowing around you.
Yeah, totally.
So Sonia has a comment, and it's huge. So I'm just going to put it up for a sec. And then I'm going to read it because it's kind of over here too. All right. Oh, wait, no. All right. Shiva, I am just tuning in to say thank you for what you all have done to fight back against the poisonous zealotry by evangelical fundamentalists in power. Y'all have spoken truth to power in ways that have dismantled the strangled hold these entities have had on American politics since the time immemorial. As performative act the Baphomet unveiling in particular as a tool for elevating our questioning of individualism in spiritual practices blew my mind. Again, many thanks to you all. Sorry for, and I'm going to assume the long post.
No, thank you, Sonia. That means the world. And thank you for your kind words. And that's kind of like the big idea. There's the external Satanism and internal Satanism. And what I'm dealing with a lot is the internal stuff, but the external stuff, that's huge. That's what drew me to the organization and what's always been so important to me. And thank you for recognizing that.
Yeah, thank you, Sonia, for commenting. That was awesome. I remember the unveiling. I was there, and it was amazing. It was amazing. It was such an important time to have everyone of that like mind together in one place and to unveil the Baphomet and to, oh, I have my little guy.
Oh, hello. It's so good.
I know. So they finally went up because they're always out of stock. And they I got an email that they were back in, and I ordered mine within 5 minutes. I'm pretty sure within 10 minutes they were all gone again.
I believe it. I believe it. It's great.
It was so fast. But it was amazing to see that big motherfucker unveiled, and just the joy in the room and the freedom in the room. And it was lovely, and it was safe, and it was just such an energy filled fucking event. The ritual, it was I'm so happy that I made it there. I'm so happy that so many people, it was important to so many people to go.
It was, at that time, it was the largest public gathering of Satanists, I think, in the world, maybe, or America. Either way, it was, but it was, I'm so glad that it worked out and we didn't all die, because that was the fear. Like, I know people who took out like extra insurance because of it. Because if you don't know the backstory, I feel like, Tiffany, you might, because I'm sure we were talking about it when we met up the first time, because the first time we met was only a couple weeks before the unveiling, but we had all these venues cancel. So speaking about, being the adversary, like, we decided, we at this point had made some waves as the TST Detroit, and we'd had some national coverage and stuff. And we'd been trying to, one day Doug called me and he's like, hey, do you want to do the unveiling of the Baphomet in Detroit? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And then we tried as a chapter to get all these different venues to agree to host us. And, well, first of all, the Baphomet's this massive statue, and it's very difficult to get into most buildings. It takes a lot of effort. And then we were limited there. And then every place that we tried, I think we tried 3 or 4 different places, canceled on us once they found out who we were. So eventually, like 3 days before the unveiling, after everybody had bought tickets, we ended up paying someone like a ridiculous amount of money to use their private warehouse. So it wasn't even, zoned for use or anything like that. But we had to pay people to come in and clean it out. And like the day of, it was like, we chose two separate venues. One for where people to go to get the directions of where the actual venue was and to like screen people. And then the other was the actual venue, because we were getting like bomb threats, and like, it was so wild. And CNN was there covering all of it. It was one of the most traumatic like event experiences of my life. But ultimately, I was so happy to see how it turned out, and that I feel like all that tension just built up to this incredible experience for people. And there were so many beautiful things like that in the early days of TST. There was so much resistance. I think the organization as a whole is much more welcome now than it was back then. But it was so dangerous and exciting. And it was so amazing that people came from all over the country to go. I think the world too, probably, to come to this event. It was so great. And I'm so glad you were there to see it.
There's something about being part of the largest satanic gathering. Like, I don't want to miss that. That sounds fucking amazing. And it did not disappoint. It was so cool. And yeah, so you had like the first venue, which was like the address that was on the tickets.
Mm-hmm.
This was so cool. So I'm trying to tell them about it, because but like, you had to walk in, and when you walked in, you're walking into almost a pitch black room. Like, you can't see hardly anything. There are some people at tables who have little tiny lights, so you can see where you're going to, but you're standing in line. And then as your eyes start to adjust, you realize that you're standing next to a live altar with 3 naked people on it. It was amazing. And as you're working your way through this, then you basically just go, you show your ticket, you show your ID, and you got something that sent you somewhere else. You had to go somewhere else. You had to meet a guy on a corner that had a certain color scarf on. You had to give him a line. He had to give you the, like a passcode. He had to give you the passcode back. And then he directed you to where you actually had to go. It was incredible. I loved it. I loved all this cloak and dagger shit so much. And all of the news crews that showed up, they showed up at the first building and couldn't understand why there wasn't anything going on. There's basically a line of people also leaving the building, and none of them thought to follow the people leaving the building.
Yeah, eventually they got there, but it was at the end of the night, and they brought their like statue of Michael or whatever tied to like a truck, and like we're going around the building with it and everything. But yeah, it was and it was raining too. So
that's right.
I think both signs saw it as a sign of success in some respect. But in the warehouse, the ceiling started leaking too. So this place already isn't like up to code. And then I was on the ladder and with a couple of guys from the band and stuff that was there, sadists who are great, just trying to patch up the roof. This is happening. We're like, we hope we don't electrocute ourselves. CNN's here. Hope we don't die. Like, that's behind every big event for TST is like, God, I hope people don't die. So far,
because there's always people who want to stop you. They feel very passionately that you are dismantling America's values.
Yeah. No, it's real. It's real.
It's terrifying what they're willing to do to stop you. That's what really scares me.
Yeah, I don't know how your neighborhood. It seems like your neighborhood's welcoming and that people are pretty cool about stuff, but people are just like people, especially in Detroit, are very, very religious and very, very protective of Christianity. And despite the fact that I think obviously Christianity is the reason so many. I don't even have to go into it, but there's so many terrible things that the religion itself has done and the way it's destroyed communities and that sort of thing. But it's just wild to see the pushback. The other time was in Arkansas. So the unveiling, and then I took one of the roles I had in TST was to at one point organize the Baphomet, not unveiling, but the Baphomet visit, I guess you could say, to the Little Rock Capitol, because we were trying to get Baphomet erected as a response to the 10 Commandments in Arkansas. And so that was another one. We had like the Grand Dragon of the KKK show up. We had to have all of these different like sort of tricks happening so that people couldn't follow where the Baphomet was going. And people there are terrifying. Everybody's open carrying there. We had to get the police involved, and the police are we're like, I hope those are police. There's people on top of buildings around us. And you can't tell like in the movie, but I was like, it was so scary. That was another one that was just like totally overwhelming. That's why I've retired from my like front facing days of like, being on the streets and doing that sort of.
I'm going to retreat and write for a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Going into my hermit mode now. So we'll see. But that's, it was an adventure. But people have such a visceral reaction to what we do. And hopefully it seems like people are understanding more and more what we stand for. And that's great. I
think the movie helped a lot. I think that, because I mean, I've tried to explain it to many people, but to have a whole movie where you've got a whole narrative and she walks you through it in a very easy way. The movie was great, by the way. Like, I loved it. We got to we actually did a contest. We took winners with us to go watch the movie with us.
Nice.
We were so excited about it. But I really think that they did a good job, and I have quite a few people who, after seeing that movie, are kind of like, "What? I might be a Satanist." Like, yeah, you might be. She did such a great job with that. That's another thing, we didn't know what to expect. We're just like, all right, there's a documentary happening. I guess same thing with CNN. We'll hope for the best. But yeah, she was very generous, I think. And she did such a great job of exploring the religion and all the stuff that we were going through at the time. And I think that's the thing that I always refer people to. I refuse to get into like long bar conversations about what TST does or what I do, why I do what I do. I'm like, all right, you just have to watch the movie. Like, yeah.
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. It's almost like it's easier.
Yeah, totally. There's so much. Well, that's the thing, right? It's very contextual. It's very like, it's sophisticated. I think what we do is pretty sophisticated, and it's really hard to understand, especially if you grew up during like the Satanic Panic, or you were around during the Satanic Panic in like the late 80s and 90s. and just saw what was happening, all of the false allegations of satanic ritual abuse and all these like grandiose ideas of what Satanists do and terrifying ideas of what Satanists do, which has kind of had a resurgence lately. But yeah, it's just wild.
All right, so I want to get to some comments because I've been ignoring people. Michelle says, when I went to Salem, I stayed directly behind the Satanic Temple at our Airbnb. I tried to go to the temple, but unfortunately they were closed. So when I could go, which is a bummer, going all the way to Salem and not getting to see the temple. Go again. I've never been to Salem, and no.
Come
someday. So
I'm gonna be there in the spring. Come for Hexanat with me in the spring. Come out.
Is that where you live now? Is in Salem?
No, I'm in Detroit actually still.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But yeah, I'm going. One of my first public appearances since COVID will be at TST headquarters because I'm going to do a book release for my new book that's coming out, and I'm also going to be teaching a couple classes there. So fingers crossed that nothing insane happens in between now and then. But Hexanat next year will be good, and it's good. It's a good time to go. Like this time of year is really the worst time of year to go because it's an absolute train wreck. I mean, unless you're really into being in crowds and like everything people being rude and crazy. It can be fun if you're into that, but a chiller time is like the spring, summer. You know, those are good.
Okay.
Time.
All right. I'll keep that in mind. Let's see. So Nikki says, hi, Shiva. I love your products. Thank you for everything you do. Much love and support as always.
Hey, Nikki. Thank you.
Let's see. What else? Go back up. Sorry. Kate says, I hope the next WitchLab party has the cloak and dagger, eyes wide shut. What's the password antics to get in? You know, I've always wanted to do something like that. I have a couple of things in the works that I've always wanted to do a dinner party. So there's a group. This is not my idea. This is a group in Paris who does this. I cannot remember what they're called, but it's something I've always wanted to steal, is to do an underground dinner party, like fancy, catered, themed costumes in an abandoned place, and you don't get the address until the day of. So this is something I've been wanting to do for years. And I will eventually. Maybe that's what we'll do next Halloween. I don't know, but
sounds amazing.
But yeah, I've always wanted to do that whole, like, you have to, you know, you don't get the address, or you have to do something to get the address. Maybe we'll make it a riddle.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's a movie. Jack says there's a movie. It's on Netflix, and it is called Hail Satan.
Yeah.
Right?
With a question mark. Yeah.
With a question mark.
I thought it was on Hulu, but it might be on Netflix. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's around.
Kelly says that, so we'll see.
Yeah. There's also a CNN. So the thing about what you were talking about earlier, Tiffany, the unveiling, is that CNN covered that, and then we had to not let any other photographers or videographers into the unveiling because CNN was covering it. So if you want to see the unveiling and how insane that was, CNN also has an episode of This Is Life by Lisa Ling that covers the unveiling. So that's another one. I think that might be on HBO or something like that. But check that out if you want to see the unveiling and like the very early bits of TST. So that's another.
That's exciting. I want to watch that because it was. Oh God, it was so good. The big fucking upside down cross that was lit up.
Yeah, that thing is amazing.
God. So good. Okay. Sonia asks, what do you even say to the noise from the folks conditioned by the satanic panic? I had my pastor watch Hail Satan. Many of us progressive Christians high-five it, by the way. It would seem you are fighting a wave of radicals who sometimes now are backed by law enforcement.
Well, that's a great question, Sonia. I think that's, the best thing I've tried to do is like have people watch Hail Satan and talk about my personal experience. Luckily, at the moment, at least in terms of things that we've done as an organization, the police have been cooperative with us, which is, controversial in itself, but like they haven't intentionally gone and done anything wild, like 90s or 80s satanic panic related. They've been very protective and like decent about things. But yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can do. Luckily, I haven't heard recently of any of, people in authority. I mean, there's legislators obviously who are doing terrible things. But I don't think it's law enforcement so much going after people right at the moment for satanic panic reasons as there isn't as much as there was in the 80s and 90s. So luckily that's not as much of a concern at the moment. There's just a lot of crazy people out there who have been misinformed. And unfortunately, it's just like the Q. I don't know if you've seen the QAnon documentary that's on HBO.
I can't bring myself to watch it. They make me nuts.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's a stupid reason not to watch it. I should, but
I think it was really good, but they're basically trying to figure out who was leading it. And they were talking with all these supporters of Q and the guys that they thought were leading the whole movement. And the thing is, like, there's a certain point where you can't talk sense into anybody. Like, there's a certain thing that human beings do. There's a certain point that we get to where we just don't care anymore. And we're just completely like, it's like war or anything else. It's like people just get ideas.
The opposing view.
Yeah, critical thinking is gone, and we're just, there's nothing really you can do at that time except try to protect yourself, I guess. That's like literally been my MO, because I'm so public facing. That's why I have a pseudonym and everything, because I'm just like, I don't want to deal with people coming to my house and threatening me. So like there's only so much you can do, I think, unfortunately. But I'm very, very, very very happy about people who have watched the movie, or like, critically thought about what we are doing and have been supportive. And there are a lot of great Christian communities where they've embraced what we do. I have a lot of Catholic friends that are like buy my stuff and like into what I do and get it and come to the classes and stuff. So it's been lovely to know that there are people who get it outside of our small community. But yeah, it's always a battle.
Yeah, for sure it is. There we've got one. First off, back to the dinner. Jason says he can make cold blood soup with lemongrass.
Ooh,
that sounds like something I want to eat in costume at a fancy place, like an abandoned something. Love that. And then this is actually for you. Kelly says, I've asked you this before, but please do that Black Night dinner at TST again in Salem.
Yeah, so I hosted a couple, speaking of dinner parties, I hosted some dinner parties right before COVID. It was like 2019, 2018 with the satanic chef, Adam Dodge, who just released a book himself this past week, I think. But he and I had this idea because I was obsessed with like the Rothschild ball in the 1970s in France in their chateau, where everybody came in. Folks have probably seen pictures where there are all these like really wild impressionist costumes, and like Batman Returns, the scene where Catwoman and Batman are dancing without their costumes is inspired by that. There's a whole bunch of cultural references, and people talk about the Illuminati when they show those pictures. Anyways, I was obsessed with that party, and I heard about a woman in I think she was in New York who did something like that, had her estate, she has an estate that she can secretly take people to in a limousine to have that party. But I was like, we should do something like that at TST. So we ended up, I partnered with Adam, who's a great chef, and we ended up for 2 years throwing a couple of like 2 parties a year, where we would do, it wasn't so much clandestine, but it was a like impressionist grand like costume party with fine dining, like 6 or 7 courses and wine and drinks and everything like that. And Adam's he's doing 2 of them this season. I'm not like, I'm a hermit right now, so I'm not coming out and doing anything, but he's doing 2 of them. And I think they just sold out this month, but I'd assume that he's going to continue. And maybe, I don't know, maybe he can come and be your chef or one of your chefs for your event. I'm sure he'd be into it. He really wants to get back on the road, but I
would love that.
Fun.
I would love that. So Jason says, yeah, with the birdcage hats, because this party you're talking about, Jason and I talk about it all the damn time. Like that is the like shining example that has been stuck in my head for so long of like the perfect party, right? Yes. Oh,
it's so amazing. I'll have to send you some pictures. I think it might be on the gallery's website. But yeah, the people get into it, and they have like, I don't know if you're familiar with the Light Witch, Courtney Brooks. I work with her a lot with photography, the promotions and stuff like that. But she ended up coming with her partner, and like the costumes were just like beyond, like it's so, everybody at the dinner is so cool. But yeah, the first course is blindfolded. So that's something that's kind of something that I've employed a couple times at rituals.
Kelly,
so
everybody had to be blindfolded.
Everybody gets there, right? And they have to be blindfolded. So, the idea of being very present and having it be a sensual experience. And then once they start the first course, they could take the blindfolds off. But I had like a very strict no phone policy. I wanted it to go back to like the 70s, like no phones, everybody talked to each other. There's only 20 people there. And, let's just enjoy each other's company and have a really good time and make connections and like be weird together, So.
One of the things that you mentioned is on my list of things to ask you about, so we might as well get there now because somebody else asked about it too.
Oh.
I don't know. Here we go. Kate wants to know, when will your new book be released? And can you give us a little summary of what that book will be about? Which
yes,
Kate's now stealing my questions. Thanks, Kate.
Hey, Kate. Yeah, actually, so I just launched the campaign for the book. It's called The Devil's Death, Your Satanic Companion for Grief and Dying. So besides ritual over the last couple of years, the other thing that I've been focusing on since last year really has been death and grief and how to approach that as a non-theistic Satanist. So as somebody who doesn't believe in the afterlife and doesn't believe in like a higher power, what are we supposed to do about death and grief? And besides the fact our culture is so bad at recognizing these things and supporting, working through any of these things, that's kind of been my quest since quarantine. So I just released a campaign for it. So I'm usually every year I have a big campaign. My first was The Devil's Tome, which was my first book. The second was my deck last year, and this one is this book. So it's going to be, I've got two versions that are limited to 111 copies each. One's a leather with gold, and then one is a paperback, a black on black gilded paperback. And yeah, it's going to be a book that kind of covers everything. So I had some losses last year. And so this was a question that I had ongoing since even before the pandemic. I have a friend of mine who actually writes in the book. Her name's Betty. She's a PhD biologist and a Satanist, and we're close. And she has an incurable disease, and she reached out to me and is like, I really want to plan for the end of life. Make my end of life plans. I want to come up with like a funeral plan. I want to, I'm navigating all these healthcare things. Like, can we team up on this and talk about it? So I ended up becoming a death doula, and basically I'm trying to incorporate all the things that I've learned, my experience working with her. She's incorporating her experience as being somebody who's like working through the healthcare industry, trying to make her own plans, coming from a first person experience, what she's going through. And together we're putting together, The Devil's Death. So it's going to have everything from like rituals. That's going to be a huge part of it, because the thing that I got asked more than anything else after I released my book was, what rituals can we do for death and grief? And I have one in the book, or I have a couple in the book, but I really wanted to dive into this more. So that's going to be a big focus of it. How to prepare end of life documents or come up with a plan for yourself, which is really what everybody, if they're interested, should be doing right at this moment anyway. So like practical tips for like how to navigate that, how to deal, basically, our best scientific understanding of grief and how we deal with it as people, and how to understand the grief that we go through. Because grief is something that happens on a daily basis, but also happens at like a very intense level when people die. So like, we're talking about grief. We talk about how to comfort other people, because that was something also that I was dealing with a lot. I lost some friends last year, and I just didn't know what to say or do or how to be helpful. So I engaged with that program. And the thing that I think is really cool about the book too is that, so a couple weeks ago, actually, I was in the midst of writing the chapter on grief, and my dad died, and he was an abusive figure in my life. So I'm going to be talking a lot about like how to deal with the deaths of people who are abusive. And so I come from the perspective of somebody who's a Satanist. So I think automatically a lot of people in our community have sort of adversarial relationships with sometimes people in their families or other people we grew up with. So that's relevant there. And also as somebody who's a survivor of like abuse.
Did you freeze on us? I think you may have. So The Devil's Death is the book that she's talking about, and I'm sure she's going to be back any second. But I think this is an amazing thing. Like it is difficult to know what to do, what to say.
Oh,
not back yet. Almost. While we're waiting for her to come back to us, let's look at comments real quick. All these comments are for you, so I'm going to wait for you back. Hey, you're back.
All right, sorry about that. It's raining.
Okay. It happens.
It's a little crazy. Anyways.
But when you cut out, you were talking about how to deal with the death of somebody who you might not like very much. A family member who gave you problems, abusers.
Yeah.
And so I think that's that, because you have to reconcile with
Mhm.
it. You know, I
Mhm.
mean, if it's somebody who, you know, a family member, something like that, you're going to have some conflicting emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was trying to write from it from an intellectual standpoint, because my background before I got in, well, I was in all of this. I worked in healthcare and I did research and stuff like that. But then my dad died, and I was like, wow, now I have a firsthand sort of understanding of what this is like. And yeah, it's like we have complicated relationships with people, and I don't think we talk about that a lot in death. You know, we're told forgive people, that's the thing that matters, and also don't speak ill of the dead. And I'm just kind of going against all that when I write the book. I'd say like the summary of everything is just what I've found is it's so important to just be honest with yourself, and you know, do whatever you need to do to make peace with yourself, basically. So I think it's kind of a radical approach for approaching death. And I'm about just a little over halfway done with the book. And I'm just like so excited about being able to do something like this, because I feel like there aren't a ton of resources out there for people in our community. And I'm just like really excited about it. So for this one, besides all the stuff that I said it included, I'm going to be doing some cool illustrations. I always like to make the books like really pretty and have like fully illustrated pieces. And I've got Alexander
Is
coordinated.
half the reason I love Satanism so much. So
Yeah.
just that out
See,
there.
I've got Alexander doing a whole bunch of illustrations, and I've also got my friend who's an herbalist who I work with a lot, Heather Moore from Hedgewitch Holistic. She's also contributing a section on herbalism and how to incorporate that into your death work. So I'm just like super excited about it. I took a break from writing because of my dad dying and like just trying to be in the experience of everything. But I'm hopeful that I'll be able to get everything done by the end of this year, and then it's going to be out to people by May. But you can pre-order a copy now if you're interested. And yeah, I'm just super excited. You can pre-order a copy on my website, serpentina.com. It'll take you to Indiegogo. Yeah, or just go to Indiegogo and search The Devil's Death, and you should be able to find it. So.
Actually, I have a link for it.
Oh, sweet.
Because I was looking you up, so I can actually post that right now.
Sweet, thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it's pretty amazing. You've overshot your goal.
Yeah.
You still have 12 days left, and you're at 182% of the money, which is so awesome. But that's still how people are going to get a pre-order copy, is to do it through there, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to release any other copies until the first round is sold out, and then eventually it'll probably the later part of next year I'll start doing some other versions of it. I always ultimately end up doing an ebook because I want it to be accessible to people. Mm-hmm. These are kind of like the more high end like art copies of stuff.
Fancy.
Yeah, I just love the idea of like, you know, like the Ninth Gate or something, or the old occult books with, you know, human flesh and whatever. I try to get as close to that as I can.
I just ordered the Club Dumas from the library because I want to read the book.
Oh, amazing.
I just ordered it. So it's so funny that you bring that up, because I love that, like, you know, that leather bound book of secrets and occult knowledge. Makes me so happy.
No, me too. And did you know, by the way, speaking of the Rothschild, that the end scenes where they're like in that ceremonial room in the castle, I think that was done at the Rothschild's castle, that that party that we were talking about actually happened in. So yeah, there's so many weird things with that movie. Is it Kubrick or something like that? Or who's the director on that one?
Who directed The Ninth Gate? Somebody tell us.
Probably not Kubrick, but somebody interesting.
I don't remember who directed it.
There's a whole bunch of like interesting lore behind it. Like everything was done intentionally. Like Eyes Wide Shut was why I'm thinking of Kubrick, I think. But you know, it's cool.
Kate also says the book sounds great. I just read Do I Have to Wear Black by Mortellus, and I want to dive more into death and funeral ritual and prep. It weirdly inspired me to put together my playlist for my funeral. I'm hoping it's popping. I'm excited to read your book when it comes out. And I think that there are so few. Mortellus has one, and I feel like there was another one too, but I don't remember who it was. I didn't have them on my show. But yours is the second that I remember about this specific topic. And I think that this topic is something that people need to be more comfortable with. Yeah. And the more literature we have out about it, especially that's accessible to us kind of peoples, right? The
Yeah.
weirdos, the people who don't necessarily want to take the church view on everything. We need another way. And for you to give this to us and make it something, once again, accessible, that we can use to cut through the stress and discomfort of that really hard fucking time.
Yeah, it's hard. It's like it's no joke. It's so hard, and especially if you're like us and you don't have anybody around. A lot of the people who end up reaching out to me are people who are young people who are still stuck in the homes of where all this bullshit's happening. Like, there's just it's so hard to find people to like support you or like good advice about how to deal with these things. So I just again that's kind of my whole goal is I want to hopefully like at least ask the right questions and give some ideas to people about how they can handle these sort of things in a practical way, because that's I mean, I love occult stuff that's really deep and weird, but like to me, I feel like the calling that I've been given is just to make things accessible to people and to like share bits of wisdom that you're not going to find in your hometown, I guess, and
Right.
hopefully have like a supportive voice that you can come back to and be like, oh, it's okay that I'm really angry about this, like it's okay that I'm crying and I'm also feeling longing for this person who abused me, but also this, and like, okay, if I want to make sure that like, I'm not dead named or something like that during my funeral, here are the things that I'm going to do. Like one of the things I discussed with Betty was coming up with a funeral party. Like you have a wedding party, having a group of people that you designate that will be the people who kind of like maintain the structure of your funeral and like all the wishes that you have in death. Not to say that everything will go perfectly, but like, we talked about for her funeral having a bouncer. She's like, there's certain people I do not want there. I don't want anyone talking about Jesus. She's like identified a bouncer she's gonna have to like tell people to leave at her funeral. So, there's a lot of ways to like go about these things.
You get to dictate, and if you have trusted friends that you can leave that that dictation with, that what I want done.
Yeah.
Okay, so Polanski did Ninth Gate.
That's right.
So there's that. This is really funny that we're talking about this. So recently, this thing has started happening where, and I don't know why, this one friend of mine, but she was like, I need to tell you what I want to have happen when I die. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, all right. So I like got out my notes on my phone. I'm like, start, just go. Right. Yeah. So I have a file in my notes for her. And then I mentioned it to somebody else and they're like, oh, take mine. I'm like, oh my okay. God. So now I have like 5 or 6 of my friends like death notes on my phone. And if I bring it up when they're around, they'll like make additions to it. They'll be like, oh wait, add this to mine too.
That's so good. One thing I want to do is I want to come up with, I'm going to put tools in the book and I want to make like an online version, but I want there to be a physical like workbook that people can work through, but I also want there to be like a digital thing, like maybe some sort of like sophisticated Google form where people can write this shit and share it. I mean, you could just put it in a document, but like some way that you can have all these things written down in an official capacity. Because even things like medical wishes for when you're, not conscious or non-responsive, like you have to have that stuff written down and stored somewhere or shared with your medical providers, depending on where you are. It's just so important to be able to like take time and like get it done and get it down and talk to people about what you want, it's a big, we believe that the body's inviolable. And so that's like a big part of why we're doing this too. And my friend Betty, her firsthand experience working, and she's a biologist, PhD, and she's working through the healthcare industry with that background. And she's coming into so much resistance about what she wants to have done. So it's so important, I think, that we're able to start to create this culture of like knowing what we need and being able to like officially document that and share it with people. So, we can have our wishes met when it's possible.
Well, I think it's also less stressful on the ones we're leaving behind.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
So that they know that, like, I know what certain people want done, and I don't have to, go back and forth about it. I mean, I might have to fight with some families about some of it, but
sure.
But I think, and even going so far as to like them telling their families ahead of time so that they know too. But I think that that's one of the things that is why it's so important, is for the other people that you're leaving behind, so that they, I don't know, because funerals are for the living, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's the thing. And so I think making it easier on them, and also the peace that comes from knowing you're doing what they wanted.
Yeah.
That is a big deal too.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that we talk about also, or we're going to talk about is, having your ideal plan and then a backup plan. And just like knowing that there's like, so everybody's on top of things. They don't feel bad if something doesn't go. If you can't get the elephant, to the stone temple where you want to have your funeral rites done, like that's okay. There's a backup plan, there's something else we can do. So everybody's supported in this and we're in good shape. So.
And, it's funny because when you have a birth plan, you often have a backup too. Like there's like, here's my perfect birth plan, right? But if I have to go to the hospital, here's the things we absolutely are or not going to do. There's two levels of here's the perfect plan, and then here's like emergency plan, but absolutely not this kind of thing.
Yes, totally, like red flags. Like here's we're working on coming up with a cute way to kind of talk about that. But yeah, absolutely. Here are the things that are absolutely non-negotiable in my mind. But here's everything else that can be flexible. You know what I mean? And you bring up such a good point, like we die, but still just to know you're going into that experience, having communicated your needs, having people like affirmed you, I think that makes a big difference too. If you know that you're going to die, like that's.
I agree with you. Like, I think that one of the panics because I haven't done that, I think one of the panics I would have is, oh my God, my kids, like how, because they're, like to have already like set it in motion, like what's happening with the kids is a big deal. And that's one of my stressors is that I haven't done that. So, and I don't want to talk about this anymore. Just kidding. But it's one of those things where like, I think that if I knew that wouldn't be a panic terror for me.
Yeah.
Maybe the ability to let go a little easier, not.
Yeah. I just like what you talked about with ritual. So much of ritual for me involves like directly confronting fears or uncertainty and understanding that I have some control over it. So this is just like another ritual in a sense, this is another way to like really confront something that's difficult and like have conversations that are challenging, but ultimately work through your fears and like come out the other side feeling grounded and, like you have a plan now. So I can move on, or like, we can have these conversations that are very.
I think we lost her again. Jason said it's been spotty all night. So yeah, so while we're waiting for her feed to come back, work on your death plan. Talk to your friends. Have them take notes because it's hard to remember everything. Take fucking notes. Write it down. Jason says, Jason's one of the people that I'm holding death notes for, and they change almost monthly. But Iron Maiden and bagpipes so far are the only constants. So I'll just,
culturally difficult.
Oh, no, almost. We're almost back. Oh, she'll be back. That's okay. So Jonda says nope, that's not Jonda. Sorry, slipped in there. One aspect of my funeral I want from my Appalachian culture is for my family and friends to sit up with me overnight. And I think that's lovely. I think that's something that to sit with the dead for a certain amount of time. And it's a sort of way of them overcoming it too. Oh, you back.
Sorry about that. I don't know what is going on with my internet today. I apologize. It's been being very strange. So sorry about that.
Okay. It happens. This is the, live TV and Wi-Fi and, it's just,
yeah,
things happen. Kelly Casey says, I think you need to become a death doula. You are a death doula, you said, yes?
I am. Yeah. I did a program through the University of Vermont. So I did that this past spring. So yes, I am. And this is kind of death doulas can do all sorts of different things. And to what you were talking about, Tiffany, it's really just kind of the same sort of support that's provided in a way during birth is what the sort of support that a death doula gives, but it can manifest in all sorts of different ways. So my current focus is just to do this book and like hopefully impart a lot of knowledge that I've gained. And the knowledge of my friends, share everything. But yeah, like it opened up a whole new world to me. And it's a great experience. If anyone's interested, I definitely recommend that program. There's so many different programs you can do, but it's really fascinating to be a part. And it's a growing field too. Like if that's something you want to do as a career, I think that's something that's going to be more and more needed as we kind of progress culturally, and it seems like there's a growing demand for that. So if you're interested in death
What
work,
was the program that you took?
it was through the University of Vermont. So it was a certification, a death doula certification. I think it was like a 3 or 4 month program. It was all corresponding online, but it was really good.
My office manager, Christina, she's been finishing up her graduate studies to be a therapist, and she has like suddenly she's decided like she wants to go into death like counseling and you know possibly death doula stuff. So I will tell her about that because she's been kind of going towards that for like 6 months or so now. So
That's awesome. Yeah,
I think so too.
There were so many people that were therapists who were like switching careers from therapy into doing death doula stuff. So there's a huge overlap there. You know, and I have a graduate degree, and this was like actually the most difficult program I'd ever been in. Not because it was like, you know, hard tests, but because we were expected to like go on message boards and like talk very personally about like all of these things. So it was very emotional and like going
yeah.
It was like super, super heavy stuff. But ultimately, I think it really helped me understand life more, and it was incredibly enriching, and I think they do a really nice job. So
Nathan says, I've learned the hard way that even if someone gives you their funeral plans, that someone up the chain of relation can trump those plans. In spite of trying to execute my mom's plans, my stepdad allowed my aunts to take over, and we were told not to come at all. And that is fucking heartbreaking.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Nathan. That sucks.
And that's what you were saying is tell, you know, that you need to tell more people, like get it really solidified with.
Yeah, I'm still like figuring out this whole chapter, but yeah, there has to be a way to like formalize this more. I mean, sometimes there are things you can't control, but I see there being, at least there's a benefit of a person like coming up with a plan, and I think having some peace of mind, the person who's dying because of that. But we'll investigate this. I feel like you could get a lawyer involved potentially and have them like be the executor of the estate or something like that maybe, but I feel like there might be some ways to go around it, but ultimately, yeah, it's really tough. I mean, you can put all the plans in place as you want, but if somebody comes in to brings a lot of money or power to the table, then it's really hard to change the way things go, which really, really sucks.
This actually is super relevant. Mortellus suggested that people do an advanced directive for the legal next of kin. There you go. So legal stuff.
Yeah, that's what we'll be talking about. There's so many advanced directives is like a broad term, but there's so many different documents you can put together. You know, it depends on the state you live in. It depends on the country you live in. But to have these things, to start thinking about these things at least, what we're going to do probably is talk in general, like terms about all these different things, but then hopefully give you some resources where you can get online and like figure out what specifically will work for you. But yeah, having that plan written out and like I said, giving it to a lawyer or something like that, I think that's going to make a big difference. If you can put aside the money, if it means a lot to you and you have some adversarial people and you can put aside the money and get a lawyer involved, like that will definitely, I feel like, trump most things. So
Sonia's asking, do you talk about anger, rage in grief in your book? And I ask selfishly as I'm dealing with that so much recently.
Oh yeah, we have a whole section on grief. I was writing it from like a very clinical standpoint, like what does the research say about like the stages of grief? I'm like, what does, you know, and then my dad died, and then I experienced firsthand the gut-wrenching physical insanity that happens during these sort of complicated situations. But yeah, that's going to be a big focus. I think, you know, I feel like as a Satanist, it's my job to explore these aspects that are kind of glossed over by the love and light crowd quite a bit. And yeah, I mean, I think it's very important to talk about these emotions that come up, and that it's normal and that it's common and that it's healthy for you to experience these things. So that's definitely going to be a topic of conversation.
And dealing with them and not letting them take over, you know, is the hard part, because anger, rage, like that is fucking strong emotions, especially in grief. You know, everything's amplified. To have tools to deal with that. So will there be like personal rituals in this for this kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a number. So I've had 2 abusers die actually. So I have rituals. I've got some of the rituals I have in the Devil's Tome that'll be in the book, but then I have rituals specifically for dealing with like grief and troubled circumstances, and like dealing with problematic deaths and that sort of thing. I also have what actually it was so funny. I was literally in the car, which is where I like to write. Well, my husband and I will go on these road trips, and I'll just be writing while he's driving. And I was writing like it occurred to me that like it would be really helpful for people to have a list of things when they're dealing with grief, like to kind of like a worksheet to work through that would have like, okay, I'm dealing with a grief right now, whether it's a death or a breakup or something at work or whatever it is. I'm going through something that's affecting me quite hard. Like I'm now going to, if I want to work through this, figure out what my needs are and how people can support me in this. So I was working through, I came up with this like worksheet kind of thing that had like, all right, here's what I can do. Here are what my needs are in grief, which is something I think we don't ask ourselves sometimes because we aren't even given the time, like, or the space to do that, like within our culture and within capitalism. But again, trying to kind of create a new culture, like here are what I need, right? Here's what I need. And like, here are the people that could potentially support me in this. Here's like what I can ask for help with, all these different things. But that's actually what I ended up using like 2 days later when I heard my dad died. You know, I was like, people are contacting me. I don't want to deal with that. Like, if people want to help, like, here's the things you can do. Like, if you want to bring me some food, that'd be great. Like, I don't want to I appreciate your concern, but I don't want to talk to anybody through Messenger about this. Like, you know, just coming up with a concrete plan to like how people can support you if they want to support you. And one of the things that I've even done in my own personal life as an extension of having this happen, not even, well, grief related, but just something I think everybody should do maybe in general. And maybe this is something people do already, but I literally came up with a document where I'm like, here's 6 people that are like my inner circle that I can rely on for these specific things. And I can also reciprocate. Here are the people, like coming up with expectations and identifying who can be a part of your death party or who can be there for you when you're dealing with grief or who you're willing to like take the time and effort to support, you know, like that was like a game changer for me. And I was like, why hadn't I done that before? But just understanding like, you know, who you can count on, what your needs are, who you can vent to. Like venting is one of the things that's been proven. Like having someone just be there that you can talk to is one of the most helpful things in dealing with grief. You don't need somebody telling you it's going to get better. You don't need somebody telling you like they're in a better place. You don't need someone telling you, you know, you're great. You just need someone to be there to like listen to you unload. Just stuff like that, like trying to like ahead of time identify those people so you know that like this is what I can do if I run into a situation that's really hard for me to deal with. And I think for me with PTSD too, and having been in the past and still from time to time, someone who totally loses it when stuff happens, I'm like, this is just a plan for me to be healthy. Like, I just need to know like the expectations I can have of people. Also, one of the things that I talked about in the earlier worksheet about, you know, what you need to do when you're going through grief, it's like, or what you can do. I'm like, how can I stay healthy? Like when my dad died, I was like, I don't want to, you know, start drinking a lot or being self-destructive. I was like, I need to have like a routine in place. I need to like get outside and take a walk. Like just this understanding of self that can help propel you into like a healthier, I guess, recovery from what you're going through is a huge thing, you know?
Yeah. Being able to actually like pinpoint things, like putting them in the place where they need to be. Like, this is the things I can do. These are the people I can talk to. These are the actions I can take. And having those things already set, I mean, I think that just makes a huge, and even like you said, giving yourself the time to even think about those things. Because I mean, that's not a question that I've ever asked myself. Like, who is my death pod? Right? Like,
Yeah.
like, but we need a better name for that. I mean,
death party. I like a death party.
I like death party too. I like it much better than death pod. But yeah, it's like your death inner circle, right? Yeah.
Or for grief too, just like having that plan though ahead. I think with mental illness, especially, just like understanding, like, I know this is going to happen. When this happens, this is going to happen. Here's how I can mitigate the harm that I do to myself and other people by like identifying ahead of time, like, all right, this is the plan, the emergency plan we're going to go into now, you know? But I've been so lucky I never really had that support until recently. And having that support now is like the thing that keeps me being able to do this work and like stay a sane person. So.
And that's the hard part, is actually getting through the work. Like you are dealing with grief currently while working on a book about grief. That had to have been a bit of a curveball too. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's always in the back of my mind that something would happen to him, but like, I try to just, my philosophy is just to try to get the positive out of whatever happens, and or productive out of whatever happens. So I'm like, well, I guess this is like, there were so many side things that happened with this. I ended up having to be his, or I was supposed to be his next of kin. I ended up divesting from everything, and he just left this huge mess, and I was the only person around, and I'm just like, we were estranged. I'm like, I divest from everything. I walked away, left the body with the state, called it a day, which I'm sure a lot of people.
We lost you again, but I don't judge you for that. I completely understand that. There's people in my life that I might be responsible for that I would do that too also. That it's just not, it's not going to be my problem. Kate says Death Squad. I like Death
Will
Squad.
Judge me for, but I'm like,
oh, wait, you back?
am I back? All right, sorry about that.
What I was saying was when you froze up, I don't judge you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I completely understand that, and I think that's the healthiest course for you. I mean, to have to put yourself in that situation and then deal with all of that. If there's a way you can not, fucking not.
Yeah, like you don't have to re-traumatize yourself. I feel like even in like witchy communities and like the occult communities, we still have this like very Christian, I don't know, I guess you could call it Christian or whatever, this sort of, you have to be the bigger person or whatever that means, or like be the most caring. It's just, it's not sustainable in certain circumstances. I want to be a good person and I want to do the right thing, but like sometimes the right thing is just walking away. That's like one of my biggest things I found in the last 10 years is like the best thing I can do for myself a lot of times is just to like walk away, and I can live with that, and that's okay. And that's another thing. Like actually did a lecture on this a couple weeks ago for the Satanic Estate, which is it's sort of in conjunction with TST, not official TST, but like almost like a monthly or holiday adjacent service that comes on, and they have a whole bunch of really great programming. I DJ there sometimes. I do lectures. Every week of Halloween they've got something going on, but they had one day that was specifically around death, and they had a doula on, and I spoke on my experience, and I was just like, somebody needs to tell people that they don't have to deal with this shit if they don't want to. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to take the situation and be that person. So like, I'm going to give people permission, not that I have the authority or whatever, but for whatever reason, sometimes you need other people to say that it's okay. I just want to say it's okay to do whatever you have to do to be healthy, and that you don't have to engage with bullshit in your family. You don't have to, in my case, he left a house that was like, he inherited some money from his dad, which he totally went through. He blew, and then he had a house that he reverse mortgaged, and we went in there to see it, and it was like maggots were everywhere. It was like the worst situation I've ever seen on the inside of the house. And the outside of the house was pristine, of course. I was like, I am not going to take this on at all. It was incredible. Yeah, he also bought a statue of Mary and put it on the outside of the house. But the inside was like, the police, when they called me, they were like, we would condemn this house. Like, and I'm like, please do. Like, I do not want to have anything to do with this.
Go for it. Condemn the shit out of it.
Yeah, he didn't leave any money for anything. I'm just like, he had no plans for anything. I tried to contact who I thought was his lawyer. Long story. I couldn't get a hold of anybody. So luckily I had some friends that were lawyers and people who dealt with like probate and all this other stuff. And I'm like, yep, I just had a crazy dream about this person a week ago. I am not going to start trying to fix their problems and like, do something nice for him in his death. He's dead. Like, I'm writing a book right now. I don't need to like go and do all this craziness. So yeah. Anyway, it's long story long, but like, you don't have to do anything. You can just talk to the people at the county mortuary, and they were like, it's so common for people to just like leave the body, which is a very controversial decision again, but it's like, you don't have to like put a ton of money into something or a person that has like fucked you over basically. So yeah, I was like, well, now at least I can tell people that. I didn't know that was an option. I thought I'd have to, spend thousands of dollars to do whatever and, put all these, do all these things for him and his death after we hadn't spoken in 6 years. So yeah. Anyways, long story long, it all worked out though.
No, I actually think that's a lot of great information. I didn't know that there was a way to just be like, nope, because a lot of times the reasons you're estranged is because there was abuse, and for you to have to go in and reopen the wounds and deal with all of that shit while taking care of them, You know,
Yeah.
even post-mortem, you're still in the role of taking care of them, which would almost for me feel resentment. Like I would feel a lot of resentment in that area, and that is enough to eat away at you too. So I think
Yeah.
what you did was to just be like, fuck all this. I don't need any of this shit. And I think you did the right thing. Like
Well, yeah, I got a lot of static from people who were like, but the house could still be worth something, but you should do this, but he's your dad. And then, but it didn't matter. I was like, and my husband went with me and my mom actually, when we went to that house, and he was just like, there's nothing for you in that house. There's nothing. And for my dad, he didn't leave any instructions. To be the next of kin, to be considered, or the executor of his estate, I would have had to go through court. I was talking to a lawyer about this who was amazing. She actually walked me through the whole step. She's like, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to hire me, go through court, which in that particular county, everything is backed up because of COVID. You're going to have to wait for months, keep the property up to date. You're going to have to put stuff in the paper about your dad. You're going to have to cremate him or do whatever. You're going to have to then, any sort of debt he had. We found illegitimate credit cards in his house, any kind of debts. He was into all sorts of weird stuff. Any sorts of debts he had would have to be taken. Anybody could come and contact you during this period out of the blue. I found out later from an ex-girlfriend that he was dating women who are younger than me and all have all these ridiculous sort of situations. And I'm so glad that I walked away. I was like, no, this is not for me. I'm not, even though the fucked up things happened between he and I still loved him. I definitely still grieved him, but I do not have it in me to put myself through that or put my family through that, and I know that it's not going to work. I know that I can't handle that. And I know that at the end of the day, there wasn't enough to, push me forward to do anything about it. It was too much. He was Catholic too. And I don't even know. I'm just he was the type of Catholic that would go into a Catholic store though to get candles. And he would just say that he was part of the church, so he would get a discount. So that was and he had a statue of Mary outside of his house. But yeah, anyways, it was pretty ridiculous and not something that I wanted to go through. So I'm here, I went through that, and I can confidently say you can do whatever you have to do. Legally, you don't have an obligation, even if you're the next of kin, to make any decisions like that. You can just divest yourself completely. So yeah, that's something interesting that came out of that situation.
Yeah, I mean, you're educating lots of people right now by telling us that, because I mean, I think that's something that people need to hear and need to understand, is that you don't have to. I mean, there's a lot of situations where you'd want to, and I understand that, but not all of them. And you've got a lot of support here. Sonia says, "Fuck that noise." Good for you. Sounds like you extended the exact amount of grace you deserve. Rachel also says, "Fuck that." No obligation there. Yeah, and fuck that guy for trying to make you even have to deal with any of it after all that.
I felt like it was a last fuck you to me, basically. He didn't have any of that. And he was so privileged, and he didn't do anything with that. He just was like, I'm just gonna not give a shit about anybody. And that's the legacy he left. And he'll be in the book now, and we can use his legacy for a positive purpose.
That's right. Use this as the example. It's like the final cutting ties.
Yeah, totally.
No, absolutely not. Not even in death do I want to deal with you again.
No, not at all.
I think that's healthy. And it's strange to say, but I think that's something a Satanist can do, because you have a clear conscience about the way that you live your life. Whereas I think that there's a lot of people who have a lot of religious guilt and stuff like that would do it for that reason.
Right. No, that's it. And also community pressure and stuff. So
right, which Satanists really don't feel.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows who I am and what my values are. And if somebody, people who did give me a hard time, I told them what happened, and they're like, "Oh, never mind." And I was like, "Yeah."
You're like, no, you don't get it.
Yeah, it was just his girlfriend, and then it turned out by the end, she was the person that said, "But he's your dad." And then by the end of the conversation, she's like, "Yeah, he was a misogynist who just only cared about himself." And she called me up a week later and was like, "Oh yeah, did you know he was doing this and this and this?" And I was like, "Makes sense. I'm so glad I walked away." So.
Right.
I mean, I feel that's the liberation that comes through Satanism, I guess, and my personal beliefs is that I don't feel like I have to deal with that. And if somebody is going to give me a hard time because I decided not to, spend tens of thousands of dollars or whatever it is of my time and money and energy into doing something appropriate for my abuser, then that's on them, and I don't think I want to be their friend anyway. So that's that.
I'd say that's fair. Like, absolutely. Somebody would give you shit is somebody that also needs to be removed from your life.
I agree. It's a good,
just got added onto that team, friend.
Yeah, just like, bonuses keep on happening.
Just checking off all you fuckers.
Yeah, exactly. Gotta get the positive from it somehow.
Yes, you do. And if removing toxicity from your life, I mean, that is always positive. And sometimes it's painful and hard, especially when you realize that, you people you thought would support you don't, but it's still removing toxicity. If you feel strongly about the way that you are living your life and the decisions that you are making, and you have people who are bringing you down or, telling you that you are wrong, you can tell them to hit the bricks. Like it's something that I do, and I don't look back, and I don't really give a shit.
That's huge. I feel like that's the path of like a liberated person. I wouldn't have been able to do this 10 years ago, but I am now. Like, it's transformed my life being able to have those sort of conversations, and that through ritual, through this path of like understanding I don't have an obligation to people like in the way that I thought I did. It's like you really get to, I think, with a fairly sober mind, look at situations and be like, this is not working for me. This relationship's not working. Like, clearly I've had this with my family and close friends sometimes too. And just really understand, like, I've been able to understand like what makes me happy and what didn't. Whereas before I was just doing things to please other people. And that's huge. It's been a huge part of my liberation, and ultimately me being happy and doing what I think I need to be doing. So it's a big deal.
I think that getting rid of being a people pleaser is, I feel like it's a piece that so many of us, if we could actually remove it as a part of ourselves, to get rid of that people pleasing thing. And it's not that you don't care or not want to take care of your people. It's that you are people pleasing people you don't even like, but you just want them to like you. And I definitely have that problem. Like, I default to being a people pleaser. It takes a lot to push me to a point where I'm like, you are no longer allowed here. Because I grew up in a fucked up situation too. And that's just what you do to survive, is you try to play the game, and you try to make sure that you don't fuck up, and you make people like you because you need to survive. And all this already, but
you've articulated it so beautifully though. This is, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. No, I mean,
yeah, but I think that if we could do that, and I think that Satanism helps people to do that. It helps people to get rid of the people pleaser, because even being able to say that you're a Satanist is all it. I mean, in I would say 80% of situations, them's are fighting words. Right?
Yeah,
like, that's why you don't bring it up at a bar. That's why I don't. I mean, I don't talk about it that often at all. And now that I have the shop, I talk about it even less. I used to have a podcast that was called Satanic Love, and now I don't talk about Satanism almost at all anymore, because I'm tired of having the same stupid conversations over and over. No, it's not about the opposite of Christianity. No, you know what I mean? You've had these conversations. They're not that bad.
Absolutely. No, it's a lot. And yeah, that's the thing. But it can also be a real, like you were mentioning before, like a barometer for finding out who's cool and who's thoughtful and who's sincere, Here at least, I mean, it's like if people are okay with you being a Satanist, then they're pretty good people at this point. Like, I feel like, because they understand the nuance, they understand critical thinking and nuance, they're progressive, like all that other stuff,
Yes.
So, and yeah, I don't know. It's definitely, I think my rift with my dad really culminated with that. And it brought up a lot of other things that have been happening for my entire life. And I'm very grateful that was the thing that broke the camel's back, I have to say that Satanism has definitely shed me of things that no longer serve me. So
I think that it helps us to slough off the stuff, like you said, that don't serve you. It actually helps people to turn away from you who are toxic to you. When I was heavily following TST, and I was and this was like 14, 15, 16, all of that, like every time I would post something satanic on my Instagram or my Facebook, just personal page, I would lose 5 friends and I would gain like 20. right? So it's just like you're attracting the right people to you by being honest about who you are and where you stand. And I think
Yeah.
that that's how we become stronger too. Like we're not an army so much, but we're definitely building a
Yeah.
group of people who think that critical thinking is important, and that what the the status quo, or what the regular people who are following what everybody else says, that doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
absolutely. And I
that's
think
kind
to
of
your
a roundabout way of saying that.
no, I think what you were saying and just this idea too about even in like, losing, gaining followers, that sort of thing. I find that the more authentic I am, it's terrifying to be authentic in who you are, but also like the right people come to you. I mean, there's tons of like esoteric books that talk about this, right? But like that's my lived experience, is that it's, the people who need to, once you can like really embrace part of or wholly who you are, the right people come in, the wrong people leave. And even with like my shop, Serpentina, and like people that follow me or whatever on socials, like I have literally had I have the best supporters. Like the customers I have are all so nice and understanding. Like I hear all about all these horror stories about people, and everybody that like has bought something from me is basically amazing and like really cool and like the nicest folks. And it's so ironic too. Like I don't think as a 8-year-old kid I would have thought this would have been I think I would have thought it's maybe my life path, but like dealing with Satanists specifically, probably would have been a bit scared. But these are like the nicest people I ever knew. They're so cool and so supportive, and like they get it. We're all coming from a similar place, I feel like, and it's nice.
Well, I feel, because, like you said, because you're putting this genuine vibe out, what you're getting are people who appreciate what you're putting out, and I think that's the big difference there, is that you're getting honest communication from people who appreciate you. I feel like I understand what you're saying. Like WitchLab is my baby, and
Mhm.
the people who walk in there are so amazing because they're just so excited to be there. They're
Yeah.
like, this place is awesome and this is where I want to be. And I'm like, me too.
Yeah.
This is great. Because they come in and they feel genuinely at ease. They feel genuine comfort because this is a space built for them. And that makes my job so much easier, and hopefully my employees' jobs easier, because the people who are coming in are of like mind. We
Yes.
automatically have a lot in common, and so it makes all of those things that people having to wait in a long line, or stupid things that happen, they're all so sweet, they're all so understanding, they're all so um helpful and supportive, and so
Yeah. It's
yeah,
amazing.
I think we're both doing a good job.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I
I'm so
definitely
impressed
think you
with
should
what you're
come
doing.
visit us at WitchLab and do an in-person thing.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I think during the whole, spring next year, I think that would be awesome. I would love to do that. Spring or summer or something like that. I want to go to one of your parties too,
Decide.
though.
What's that?
I want to go to one of your parties too. I was looking at photos of your party like last weekend, and it's so cool. I heard you talking about it earlier, but yeah, it looked amazing. I miss
It
throwing
was
parties so much.
it was so good. It was so fun. This one was much bigger. So we had the satanic cocktail party in 2019, and
Uh-huh.
that shit was awesome. It was really small though, because we had it in the shop. So we
Okay.
only sold, we had like 40 tickets or something. But this was an entire huge outside backyard. So we didn't have a limit on tickets. And so it was fucking awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So yes. So next time I'm getting ready to throw a party, I'll let you know. I'll
Please
let you
do.
know
Yeah.
as soon as I start planning it, so you can get your travel plans together.
Yeah, we love car like road trips, so I'll just road trip down and hang out or something. It'd be so much fun.
I think that would be awesome. That'd be amazing. But we also have to go to Salem too.
Oh,
So
that's true. Yeah, Salem,
we'll
definitely.
figure out
Definitely.
like maybe Salem in the spring, and then you can come to WitchLab in the summer.
That sounds great. I would love
We have
that.
amazing air conditioning.
Yeah. It'll be good.
Okay, I am gonna let you go. It's after 10. I've kept you for a really long time. But I want you to tell all the people where they can find you and your wonderful products.
Yes. Oh, thank you. You can find my website is serpentina.com. And yeah, that's where you can find all my products. If you go to social media and type in Shiva Honey, that's where you'll find my socials and find links to things. But yeah, I would love if you guys wanted to check out the book, give it a share, see if you like it. I'm super excited about that. And I'm so appreciative of being able to talk to you. This is such a great chat. Like, it's been too long, and I'm really, really happy that I sat down with you today. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for bringing more magic to the Midwest as well, because we need it. We need it so badly. And you are a dark light in this wilderness of the Midwest. So thank you.
Oh, that makes me so happy.
No, I'm so impressed. We met each other before you, I think, opened the shop, and like, I just keep seeing it grow and all the cool shit you're doing. And I'm like, this is it. Like, this is it. It's so good.
Well, we will definitely get together some point in person. And once your book comes out, you should definitely come back on the show.
Yeah, I would love that. Absolutely.
All right, everyone, have a wonderful evening. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you guys all sleep well tonight.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.